Thank you, Omar. Thank you all for being here. I hope you've had your caffeine hit. Before we get started, I would love to get a show of hands. How many people in the room have engaged in or invested in proptech before? Engaged in or proptech? Thank you.
We're going to change that.
Exactly, that's why we're going to change that. Hopefully, at the end of the session, you're more open-minded. Amazing. Okay, so to get started, I want to talk about how technology is changing the way that we interact with real estate. We've got some experts here. Rami, you've been in the industry for 15 years. How is Stake changing the way that we can invest in real estate, making it simple, accessible, and affordable?
Thanks. So, first of all, I'm very happy to be here. We're actually launching in Egypt very soon. We really believe in the market. So I'll give a quick, later on I'll talk about that. But, just to give you a quick intro on what Stake is. Stake is a digital real estate investment platform that allows anyone from anywhere in the world to invest in rental properties for as low as $100 in under 3 minutes. So I've been, as you said, I've been part of the real estate industry for over 15 years. And I think real estate as an industry has been one of the few industries that hasn't changed. The processes are very archaic. It's a very heavy asset. The way you buy it, the way you invest in it, the way you interact with brokers is still done the same way as when our parents were buying real estate. And I think that the opportunity to change this is going to be massive. For us, it's how do we? Ever since we're young, our parents teach us you should, if you have savings, put it into property. And I think COVID has really made that very important. That having a roof over your head during lockdown is very important. People still had to pay rent. So as an asset class, with the inflation that's going on, in COVID, it really showed that real estate is a very important asset class. So how do we digitize this asset class? So people can come onto the platform, upload their passport, their proof of address, create an account, and then choose which properties they want to be part of. Let's say we have 6 or 7 opportunities. They decide they want to invest $500 in one, $1,000 in another, and then they check out just like they would on Amazon, and then boom, they own a property in under 3 minutes. We launched the business in 2021, January. We're actually, going into finishing our second year. And we have over 70,000 registered users from around the world. We've distributed over close to $1 million in returns. And we believe that today someone who has money needs to be putting some of that into real estate. So we make it hassle-free, transparent, and accessible. I think it's very important that real estate is an inaccessible asset class, and to make it accessible and digital is very important and key to our mission. That's making it transparent, accessible, hassle-free, and just allowing people to participate in this asset class.
Josh, as an investor, how does that sound to you? Is that welcoming at all?
It's awful. I mean, of course not. No, me and Rami talked before. I love it. I mean, I was born and raised in the UK. I was born and raised in London. And we were talking, I think, Rami, are you based in London now? You live there?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah. So in London, we have an area called Soho. And Soho used to be a hellhole. I mean, it used to be really, really bad. Like just drugs and just crime. It was crazy. So you could buy a house in Soho probably in the 80s for like 10K, £15,000. Which I used to have to make a dollar conversion to that, but it's probably around the same US dollars now. And now those prices are 1.5 million, 2 million. And so it's completely priced out a millennial and Gen Z generation in terms of buying a property, wholesale. So what Rami and Nadim are doing is absolutely fantastic. It's a really, really exciting industry to get involved in. And it actually gives a massive opportunity to young people, actually, people across the board, to have the opportunity to actually own property, but obviously in a different way. And I just started being a partner at Coin Owners Capital, which is a new fund. It's partnered with Sheikh Hamdan's office in Dubai. And we're really, really excited about the industry. Dubai has obviously a lot of nurturing and growth to do, as well as Egypt. Obviously, Egypt has massive, massive potential and opportunities in it also. So it's a very, very exciting asset class, and the technology overall is extremely exciting, not just even from the perspective of what these distinguished gentlemen are doing, but also in regards to construction, robotic arms, 3D printing, automation, AI. There's so much to be done in this area that is extremely exciting.
To your point about partnerships, how pivotal do you think private and public sector partnerships are needed to further enhance proptech in the region?
It's extremely important. In Dubai, obviously, our government is fantastic, in my opinion. I think that they're really, really good, and that they're focused on running the country as a business, which is great. And so you see the institutions like Damak and Amar and the massive growth of scale that they've done over the years, which is amazing to see. But you do need public sector interaction a lot of times in this to make it easier. It's one of the things that myself and Rami were talking about before, also in regards to his model. Has so many elements of Web3 and tokenization, but he doesn't utilize Web3 and tokenization because he doesn't have to, right? And because of the land department and things along these lines. And those are the things that Dubai is certainly in a position to help with, because that's what they're focused on, is the growth of their economy. And infrastructure from a tangible perspective is a massive part in that in Dubai. And I think most places are going to start following, as you see it in Saudi right now as well. I think a lot of places are going to start following that thought process as to how Dubai has grown over the past 50 years overall, but really, concentrated in this past 20 years, 10 years, it's been dramatic. And I think companies like what these guys are doing really help ultimately with that, and the government should support them as much as they can in as many countries as possible.
Nadim, on to you. You have been witnessing the transformation in the proptech sector in Egypt. We've heard about Dubai and UAE. Can you give us your thoughts of what you've witnessed so far, where it's going?
Yeah, absolutely. So first off, it's great to be here. My name's Nadim. I'm one of the co-founders of Partment. And yeah, I think proptech in general is still a very nascent space. I think even globally, and when you look at the region, but the way I see proptech transformation, I think this has happened over 3 waves of innovation. I think the first wave of innovation is when we started to see the digitalization of the information, right? So first wave was all about taking that information from offline to digital, so you can go online, compare between a couple of different options, you make a decision, right? I think the second wave in proptech that we saw was mostly around the creativity and how you buy this or acquire this property. So you get a set of options, whether it's a lease, whether it's a rent to own, and we've seen some of these recently in Dubai also do really well. And I think wave 3 is where we started to innovate and recreate the ownership piece, right? The concept of co-ownership, reimagining how people can buy together, use together, invest together. There's plenty of use cases, but that's really the transformation over time that I've observed. Today, as Partment, I think we're definitely building on the success of wave 1 and 2. We're in the co-ownership domain, and I think just real quick on Partment, our idea is to allow people to invest fractionally in second homes, right? On the back of the nomadic lifestyle that people are now aspiring to have. I think COVID has inspired and accelerated a lot of that. And I think some of the keywords that Rami has touched on as well is like making all of that very, very hassle-free, right? So real estate is a wealth-generating machine. I think we all agree to that. But the disruption, I think, is slowly now taking off on that perspective.
I'm glad you mentioned the work from home model. It's a perfect segue to my next kind of topic, which is, has the work from home lifestyle accelerated demand for the type of offerings that both Stake and Partment have?
Yeah, I mean, I think, as I mentioned earlier, during COVID, everyone realized how important real estate as an asset class is. Regardless of what was happening, rent was still being paid. And people were more comfortable, and companies had to adjust with people working from home. So people started thinking, oh, hey, listen, I'm going to spend more time at home. I need to upgrade my home. I need to get a bigger space. I need to have an office at home. So, that started, people started realizing, okay, hey, listen, real estate is more important than ever was. And actually home ownership started becoming important because people were like, hey, I'm paying rent. Now I should buy a home with interest rates being very low at the time. So it definitely did affect that. And I think, for us, we started realizing, okay, people want to invest, they want to own a home, they want to participate in this asset class, but the major blocker always, and I think this applies in Egypt a lot, is, how do you get financing? Mortgages in Egypt, that's why developers in Egypt are giving 15-year payment plans, because, getting a mortgage for a property is very difficult. So, people then have to have means of, how do I participate in this asset class? How do I, move from being a renter to an owner? And I think, COVID has really changed the mindset. And now we realize, after everything that's happening in crypto, with the stock market, real estate is a solid asset class. You don't wake up and it's gone down to zero, like it does in other asset classes. And I think having it part of the portfolio is super important. And I think, being able to give people the opportunity to do that from very small amounts is very important, whether it's a second home or an investment home. People have realized that they need to have this asset class as part of their investment portfolio.
Yeah, definitely echo that. I think COVID has played a massive role in accelerating remote work in general, right? I think 5 years ago, this wasn't very common, but I think what we've seen over COVID, that remote work has quadrupled in that period of time, right? Remote work has become more normal. More people are aspiring to be, let's say, based in Dubai, but when it gets too hot, they go to Europe or vice versa. And we actually see a lot of movement between that corridor of like MENA, Europe, and I think this is where we as Partment are focused on. Very lucky to be launching in Guna first. Very lucky to be for Guna, yes. Guna is, you guys have experienced this firsthand, but a very fertile, I think, launchpad for our business. And I think also hearing today about the initiatives like G Valley and etc., we can't be more excited about this.
Definitely a great time to be in Al Guna, as we all are experiencing. Josh, if I correctly understand, you're based between two places. So how do you view real estate and ownership in that sense? Do these options help your decision making at all?
Well, yeah, I think naturally, just on a show of hands perspective, and it's okay. I know it's hot outside, so if you have sweaty armpits, it's okay. But from a show of hands perspective, how many people here own a home? So what would you say? What is that? It's probably 30 to 40% of the room. 30 to 40%. It's not bad, actually. I thought it'd be much less. But listen, ultimately, I think as an asset class, it's extremely important from a tangibility standpoint, because you never know what's going to happen, you never know where you're going to end up. And I think at the end of your life, when you're not working, I think to have a home that's paid off is an extremely valuable thing. I know we talk about a lot from an investment standpoint, but from an essential resource perspective, I think it's very important as well. Working with these guys and having something where you are consistently making income from, you're consistently making some kind of revenue, that's really, really key. So I think from an investment standpoint, it makes a ton of sense to get involved in proptech, and as an asset class, obviously it's extremely, extremely important. And I think that should be respected and thought of when people are making educated decisions on investment.
I think more people here are going to look into proptech, I hope, after this conversation. But given how rapidly changing the proptech landscape is, in the MENA region, but also globally, I'm curious to know, as we touched upon home ownership, what do you envision it looking like going forward? Where's the innovation at? And how Egypt, but also regionally, how do we compare? What can we look forward to?
I think, most importantly over, how it's going to change is people, the Gen Zs don't want to own a home. They want to be kind of moving around. And I think that presents a fantastic opportunity for people who want to invest in real estate, because rental homes become very important. So, when you have people becoming more renters, you want to participate in owning that home because it gives you that recurring income on a monthly basis. And, as everyone says, real estate is a hedge against inflation. And, given what's going on with the economy today, people need to participate in that. And the way it changes is, before, real estate became, okay, if I want to buy a home, I go to a listing site, find out what the property is, it connects me with a broker offline, and then, the broker takes you around, might waste your time, show you something above your budget, and it's just a very unpleasant experience. And that's kind of where that hasn't been changed. And this is where the opportunity is. How can I go into an app, find the property I want, transact online, get a mortgage online, manage it online, and not have to do anything, all the paperwork, and even potentially not meet a broker. And I think, that's where the opportunity is. And, for us, we're doing fractional homes right now, but that we've built a full back end where someone living in Tokyo can own a piece of Dubai in under 3 minutes and start earning income. But nothing stops us from putting a full home and people doing that. And I think the more you digitize that annoying, clunky experience, that's where the opportunity is in proptech. And I see that really changing. You see a lot of mortgage companies doing that across the world now, where you can apply for a mortgage and get approved in less than an hour. But also there's rent to own. There's just so much you can do, whether it's in the region. And there's a lot of startups that say they want to go internationally. For me, the MENA region is phenomenal. You have 400 million people here with an annual savings of $500 billion. And there's an affinity to real estate in our part of the world. So, before people start saying, oh, I want to go to the US, I want to go to Europe, this region, Egypt, the United Arab Emirates, Saudi Arabia is a phenomenal place. And I think, where, as I said, in Egypt, the mortgage business hasn't really developed and the real estate business hasn't developed. There's massive opportunities that you can, just disrupt and be a part of the change of the proptech scene here.
As a consumer of convenience and untapped potential, there's anyone looking to start a business? PropTech, look into that.
I just want, I want to say one thing as well. Like there's, for e-commerce, there's one app. It's Amazon. Everyone knows that. When you want to get around, you call an Uber or Careem. Binance is now the leader in crypto, but there isn't one app for real estate. And that's kind of what we want to build for the future is, you open up Stake and someone in Cairo can own a piece of property, not just in Cairo, but in Dubai, in London, in Paris. What stops people from doing that? And this is where we want to build, give people an opportunity to own a piece of Dubai or anywhere in the world just with 3 taps on button. And I think that's where the opportunity is in this part of the world.
Dean.
Yeah, I think I want to touch on 2 points here. I think the first one, to your question on innovation and how things are going to change over time and what the use case is going to look like. I think definitely the fractional work that Rami and the team are doing, the co-ownership that we're looking at, this is definitely a very solid step in that forward-looking direction. I think if you look at the anatomy of co-ownership, dive a little bit deeper on how things are done today, I think a lot of innovation is gonna be in that specific part of the value chain, right? How does co-ownership actually work? Is it gonna be the same way today, like in 5 years? Absolutely not, right? I think there is that piece of the value chain that is gonna get developed big time. The other point on just where we see our power as a company, we see our power in our network, in the global network that we want to build. We're effectively creating a new category that touches between the Airbnbs, the traditional timeshares, and the hotels, and then buying like a full home, right? And that's the intersection that we want to reimagine and recreate, right? The full potential of Partment is going to be achieved once we start having a multi-market operation. So you could be buying 1/8 of a property in El Guna that would give you access to another place in the world, all working towards that nomadic or working closer to the nomadic aspirations that people are now aspiring to have.
Thank you. Josh, a different perspective?
No, I 100% agree. I think as an investment, it's something that if you look at where we're going in the Middle East as a whole, if you look at Dubai and you look at Saudi and you look at these regions, there's no one here that's going to tell me that Dubai is going to look the same as it does now in 20 years, or Saudi is going to look the same as it does now in 20 years. So I think as it pertains to these two companies, you're investing ultimately in the future of regions that have literally said they're going to develop. So it goes back to your earlier point as it pertains to governmental, public and private sector interchanging and connection. You're investing in a sector where people are promising development and they're pushing development more so than anything else. You know, in London, it's not going to look much different in 10, 20 years. There's not really much you can do. There's not a lot of space. I think the Middle East, Egypt, obviously I talked about the UAE, Saudi, Doha, Qatar. There's so many places where there's going to be mass growth and mass opportunity. So I think people should really look at it from that standpoint. You're investing in the future of these places. And that is what becomes exciting. Dubai was #1 for tourism last year, #3 for inward investment. And obviously Saudi's now looking to match that. And me and you guys were talking about it outside, that brings up the entire region, right? What's going to happen to Egypt then? What's going to happen to a lot of these other places? The same thing happened with the UK that then kind of spread across Europe, etc. America and Canada. So it's a trickle effect. There's a ripple effect that comes from all of these things. So I think people should look at that standpoint, regardless of what it is. Obviously, what these guys are doing is absolutely incredible. But even from a construction standpoint, automation, AI, in the property industry, you're investing in a wider field. And that is a very, very stable investment. It's a tangible investment. And I think when you're looking at it from that perspective, it makes a ton of sense.
I can definitely attest for that. As a journalist, the amount of news and funding we're seeing attributed to PropTech is unparalleled this year. So 2 key takeaways from today. If you haven't checked out PropTech and the opportunities it presents, please do take a look. And also, investing in a country's real estate means investing in its future in the Middle East. So thank you so much. We're at time, unfortunately, but if anyone has any questions, I'm sure panelists will be around to answer questions. Thank you so much, everyone.